right, I'll be right there in just a second, folks. Sneaking up on you. There you go. All right, sorry about that. Whoops, we don't have any sound yet. Hang on, hang on, hang on. All right, hang on. Getting there. Just a minute. Part of me wants to say you wouldn't believe how complicated this is. But that would sound very unprofessional, wouldn't it? Give me a minute. Let's see if we have sound happening. Whoops! I just collapsed you. There we go. All right, let's see if we have sound. Just a minute, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Okay. Do I have sound? Yeah, looks like it. All right, I think I do. Sorry about that. Hello, Fabiano and Accio. Thank you for speaking. All right. Sorry about that. Long story. Won't bore you with details, but technical issues. So I was talking about, not that it matters now, of course, but there is one little bit of method to my madness, a little bit of instruction, perhaps, for any of you who are early journey artists. And it is this. Develop a system whereby it doesn't take an act of Congress, quote unquote, to be humorous, mildly humorous, to do some artwork. In other words, if you can, and many of you, if you're not a full-time artist, you don't have a designated, I understand, you do not have a designated place in your house or apartment or whatever it may be to do all your artwork. But you could have a designated sketchbook. And my suggestion is that you have several sketchbooks scattered throughout your life. For instance, have one sketchbook that you keep in your car at all times. For those in-between moments when you're waiting for someone or something's happening, for some reason, you have a few minutes in your car, then you could pick it up and do some sketching. Have another one of your sketchbooks on a coffee table in front of the TV. So when you're watching some stupid TV, during the stupid moments, you can sketch. Does that make sense? So don't keep all your stuff stashed carefully away in a carefully guarded cupboard, so to speak. If you do that, I fear you won't do nearly as much artwork as you ought to. So make it easy for yourself. Have a sketchbook here, a sketchbook there. You may notice and you could have in a watercolor kit and a watercolor kit there. Same basic concept. Make it easy for yourself. For what it's worth, I'll give you a similar. Again, this is Uncle Dan dispensing unsolicited advice. But the same thing is true if you are a musician, and I subscribe to this concept pretty strongly. Don't keep your instruments in a case. Like, here's a classic case. You play guitar, so your guitar is in a case. And if you don't play it very often, it's because your guitar is in a case that you keep under your bed. If you're a guitar player who keeps your guitar under your bed, listen, hate to break the news to you, you are not a guitar player. So it needs to be sitting in the living room, right where you can grab it. Most of my guitars are hanging on the wall, so I can grab them at a moment's notice. I don't have to go, I don't have to stand up, walk across any room. I don't have to open a case. I don't have to, and so on. And the same is true pretty much of all my instruments. A little bit of unsolicited advice, but again, the parallel for artists is the same. Make it easy on yourself. Have a, as I said, a sketchbook in your car and one in the bathroom. Maybe, I don't know, that doesn't work for me, but it seems to work for some people. So at the moment I'm doing just general shading. I've got Payne's Gray, a combination of Payne's Gray and raw umber, I think. Maybe burnt umber, I'm not sure. Raw or burnt on my, my brush at the moment. Nice, just a neutral, warm shadow color that lets me just come in here and knock out a whole bunch of shadows really quickly. This, of course, is a screened-in porch. I'm assuming that you're interpreting that visually. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hang on. And how's my camera angle? Am I? Whoops, not very good. Okay, that's better. All right, are we all back up and running now? I think we are. Thank you, Monique, for helping me with the sound. Fabiano Inaccio did a painting just like mine. Well, good. Huh. This one or some other one? Doesn't matter. Glad to hear it. Once again, this particular piece is not intended to be a work of fine art, if you will. It's just a commercial rendering to show a client what this structure might look like when it's built next to their trailer. So it's supposed to be rendered fairly quickly because it doesn't have to be a masterpiece to achieve its purpose, its raison d'etre. Raison d'etre. For any French people out there, you can help me with that pronunciation. The reason for its existence, it's raison d'etre. The reason for its existence is just to sell a client on a concept. Any more than that, it's a little bit of a waste, but of course I want it to look attractive, of course. Because I'm an artist, so I want everything to look attractive. I'm still just doing general shading. I'll come in here at probably at the very end and do, well, I'll actually do, the last thing I'll do will be some white highlights with a correction pen. So if you stick with me, I will do that here in this broadcast, assuming we don't have any more technical snafus like cameras dying. Let me look and see what color is this trailer. Yeah, as I thought, it's all gray and white. That's all. Whoop, 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 sorry. So my invention here needs a little bit of work. I'll try to get that taken care of before my next broadcast. Whoa. Michael, cross-hatching taking forever. That's a goes without saying, doesn't it? Cross-hatching just takes forever. It does indeed. Let's change my mind. Let's do these benches in a more fresh wood color. So I need some excuses for color in this thing. The trailer is in real life, the trailer is white, and the gazebo deck porch is brown. So it's just a real colorless existence here. All right, we do have some green bushes down here, and you may be sure I am going to put some flowers on those bushes. Because we need some, and here's a hanging plant up here. I'll put some flowers on that as well. Oh, and I wasn't going to, but yeah, let's put some, speaking of needing color, let's do some various shades of green back here in the trees in the background. I don't want them to come too far forward. I want them to stay back there, back pretty far. And I don't think I talked to my client about what color the roof should be. I'm going to take a wild chance. Now I can fix this in Photoshop. But I'm going to make this a red roof, which he may not approve of. But again, in Photoshop, what the client sees is usually just the digital, the JPEG, the printed copy. But this drawing is so in need of color. It's a tin roof, and red is a very traditional color for a tin roof, so I'm not being completely foolhardy, just partly foolhardy. I do wish I had thought to ask my client what color. Whoops, that's just too dark, isn't it? Wish I thought to ask him what color should I make the roof. I think it's more likely, in my opinion, that the roof is going to be green, which is another very traditional color for a tin roof. But I'm going to go with red for the moment, simply because it will help the illustration so much. Hang on. All right, that does it. Bear with me just a second. I need to get a better support system. I'm not even going to try to bother to, oh no, it's not here. I'm not even going to try to explain what support system. I'll just say that the camera that you guys are watching on is a it's on a cantilever system, and there are actually 2 cameras on the support, and it turns out that the weight of the 2 cameras is a little bit too much. All right, let's see if we can keep ourselves afloat here. By the way, if there are any aspiring watercolor painters watching, I just showed you there. Maybe I should say beginner watercolor painters. I just demonstrated for you, in my opinion, the best way to do thin straight lines in watercolor. It's not as you might think. It's not by picking up a brush, say like this, and sticking out your tongue and drawing lines like this. It is rather by picking up a flat brush and using the flat to make straight lines. Much faster, and you end up with a more attractive mark. There we go again, talking about abstract rules of design, if you will, even when doing a mere illustration. So it does always comes into play. Adding still more green to this background. Yeah, I think that's okay. All right, if you would just sit there for a moment. I'm going to pick up my watercolor tray. Whoops. Walk across the room, or around the perimeter of the room, to my stash of watercolor toys and pick up my gouache kit. All right, so here, these are my gouaches. I've joked often about how I didn't, for many years, well, for several years, back in my 20s, maybe early 30s, I didn't buy gouache paint for a long time, simply because I didn't know how you're supposed to pronounce that word. I saw it written on the label, but I didn't know what its language of derivation was from. Are we supposed to pronounce that like it's French or Latin or Germanic or Saxon or anyway? Once I realized that was the reason I wasn't buying it, then I realized that was stupid, and I went ahead and bought it. But anyway, it is gouache. No, I should have said it is gouache. Anyway, too late now. Missed the opportunity. Whoops. There you go. So you're collapsing again under the weight of this system. All right. So the purpose of the gouache is an opaque, of course, is an opaque watercolor. Opaque, opaque, opaque. And if you want to watch a gouache, if you want to watch a good gouache painter, James Gurney, you subscribe to James Gurney. He does He's delightful. He does a lot of broadcasts where he does these little tiny, like 4 by 6 inch plein air paintings. I mean, it would drive me berserk to do a painting that small, but anyway. And he does them in gouache, spends a couple hours, and they're delightful, quite very realistic. And so there's my red, right? Where else can I sneak some color in this thing? Whoops, whoops, whoops. Let's try, there's a logo, if you will, on the side of the trailer. It's blue. And there are some running lights. I'm just giving all kinds up here. Those are yellow gold. All right, now I'm going to paint some of the woodwork. So I'm mixing up some opaque tan. One of the tricks that you have to get used to about using gouache is that it dries noticeably darker than it goes on. When you put it down, it looks one color, and in 5 minutes, it's gotten 3 degrees darker than you put down. So you have to make that adjustment with gouache because it's a simple water suspension paint. So as the water drains out of it, you know, as it dries, it gets dark. Gets dark. What am I going to say? It gets darker. Okay. I don't know why that isn't logical. Listen, I thought it was very logical for a second there, but then I think about it. It's like, wait a minute. Why would the water draining out of it necessarily make it get darker? Be that as it may, it does get darker. So, oh, I know. Let's do some yellow flowers here in these hanging baskets. These little hanging planters were my idea. And I'm pretty sure they were in the sketch, so evidently my client acquiesced anyway. Decided it was a good enough of an idea to keep. I don't think those are flowers. I think those are yellowish leaves. Good enough. I don't think that's fine. But on the other one though, let's make them reddish. Aha, I have an idea. I just changed my mind about something. I thought I was going to use a whiteout pen to do some details. I mean, a whiteout, yeah, here's what I mean. Here's what I'm talking about. I thought I was going to use this, but now I'm thinking, no, if possible, I'd rather use literally a white pen if I can get it to work. This particular tool, Pentel rollerball pen. It works great when it works. Often doesn't work. I have 2 of them here. Let me ransack a different kit. See if this one works. All right, that might work. This would be for the Grate, Grate. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Final touches. I'm going to use this correction pen just to do a touch of texture down here in the foreground. I want it to have a gravelly feel. For some reason, I've ended up with a dark stripe on this, on the underside. I mean a light stripe. I don't mean dark at all. I mean light, that I don't need, that I don't like at all. So I'm gonna paint that over. Would be better to do it with watercolor, but that would require me standing up and switching up kits. I don't want to do that. So there we go. I think I'm done with a real quick pen and ink and watercolor rendering. I'm sorry, let me get it in view for you. Thank you, Warren. Can't see the top. There you go. All right. So, let's do, rather than doing the other one of those, because that would be pretty repetitive, let's switch jobs here for a minute. So, this is the more fine artsy rendering that I'm being hired to do. So this is not a commercial, what I would call illustration job. This is a more artsy fine art illustration. In fact, my client sent me a copy of one of my paintings, watercolor paintings, from my website. That is a great help. I'm trying to think how to show this, because I would rather, hang on, let's see if will this thing stay up. All right, it might. Hang on just a second. Because I would rather do this the right way, quote unquote. And by the right way, I mean, how's that? Yeah, okay, good. I have to shift my chair a little bit, but not too bad. All right, so let me show you. I've got a lap board. This is called a lap board. It's kind of like a giant size clipboard. And it's made, just as you can see, for sitting in a chair at a desk or a table and leaning. In fact, I can get this one tick better. Putting it in your lap. It's sort of like the world's cheapest drawing table. There we go. All right, you can even perceive the angle now, can't you? John Myers, New Mexico. Oh my goodness, you have a long drive, John. Hello, Laura Tessler. I don't know if you're still there. And Lori Taylor. Huh. All right, so here's the assignment. This is somebody's place of business, and the woman, the wife, is hiring me to do this. I think it's a surprise for her husband. This is the husband's business, and it's called First Step Services. I believe it's like a, what do you call it? Immediate care, medical care kind of place. Now, this is what she sent to me, that photo. I went on Google and looked up, found this, and on Google Maps, I found the, so I moved, do you know what I mean? This is from Street View. There we go. These are from Street View, 2 different views. So I have here 4 different angles, and to tell you the truth, and none of them, even the one she sent me, is the best, but I don't love it. I would like to see a little bit more of the side. So anyway, I'm going to be looking at all of those. All right, so here we go. A significantly, I was going to say totally, but that might be putting it too strongly. It's not a totally different approach from what I just did with the illustrations, but it's a, shall I say, noticeably different approach. Okay? I need a little bit more light over here. There we go. First of all, I start with I'm still trying to get situated. There we go. Right. I start with watercolor pencil. I'll explain more about why I'm doing what I'm doing as we go along. And forgive me, you guys can probably hardly even see this, what I'm drawing, can you? And that's actually part of the method, if you will, to the madness, if you will, is I'm using a very light color, in this case yellow, to sketch in or block in the most rudimentary or elemental or simple lines in the illustration. Because as soon as I switch to a darker color, which I don't know what color that's going to be yet, the most typical would be orange, but I dare not assume that that's the case, because it may or may not be. As soon as I switch to a darker color, however, this yellow, all of these yellow marks will essentially disappear from view. Essentially, they won't literally disappear from view, but as soon as I use a darker color, our eyes won't pay any attention to the yellow anymore. So that's kind of cool. That means I can make all these yellow marks with impunity, if you will, without fear of punishment. And goodness knows how fearful I am of punishment. The meaning of the word impunity, right? No, let's be more strictly speaking. So I can make all of these yellow marks, and they're going to disappear. Which means I can do an awful lot of damage, if you will. I can do an awful lot of sketching. Can change, which I've already done. I've already changed my mind several times, moving things around. And let me explain the reason for the lap board. When you use a lap board, or better yet, a drawing table, or better yet, an easel, like good old painting easel that you're standing at, I like to say often there's a reason why. If you look up the word atelier, it's a French word, so it's spelled A-T-E-L-I-E-R. Of course, you have to remember that in French all the letters are silent. So if you look up the word atelier, and hit image so that you see pictures of students. An atelier is basically a serious, or more precisely a serious art school. Okay. If you look up atelier and you see the students working, they'll all be standing at easels. They're not sitting down. And there's a reason for that. It's because the juices, so to speak, flow better. The energy flows better for all of us when you're standing up. Okay, but there are times when standing up is not the best solution when you're sitting down. But the worst thing you can do is work on a plane that points at, like it is this right now, I just pointed it straight at the ceiling, which is also straight at you guys. That means I'm viewing this plane from an extremely oblique angle. Does that make sense? Now, this is the way most of us draw. If you draw at the kitchen table, if you drew at your desk in 3rd grade, sure, it was tilted slightly, but nearly enough. And when you draw that way, you are requiring that your brain does massive amounts of very sophisticated calculations to compensate for the oblique angle that you're looking at, right? So that's the reason why the world's cheapest, look at it, it's just basically a giant size clipboard. It costs under $5, I think. Now it's pointing more or less at my nose. My brain does not have to do any super duper fancy calculations to make corrections because it's pointing right at my nose. That makes sense? All right. The other thing is when the plane is at this angle, then it makes sense for me to hold my pencil in this, what I call side saddle. It's basically like this, except that I tuck it then between a couple fingers, doesn't matter which ones, most often my pinky. And then I'm not using, see, this is a drawing, shading, scratchy grip. This is okay for super details, but for the real drawing, it's much better to hold the drawing utensil in this manner because your whole arm moves. Whew, that's another whole long speech. The part of your brain that controls your arm is a better artist than the part of your brain that controls your digits, your fingers, your phalanges, if you will. All right, so I'm ready now to graduate to my next darkest color. Here's my assortment. So the next, let me just pull out some options. There, all of these are too dark, so I'll put those down for the moment. Try to remember where I put them. Now I could just go, let me do a little bit with this color, which is I guess orange. It looks more, the handle itself, they call it orange. Okay, they do call it orange. The handle itself looks more like a yellow orange, but it's coming off here quite straight up orange. So, and you can already see, forgive me just a second, I need to make a slight adjustment. My reference photo keeps tipping over in the breeze created by my ceiling fan. It's always something, isn't it? Just always one crazy thing after another. All right. Oh, we just lost Facebook. Let's try to pick them up. Hang on, Facebook, we're coming back. We're coming back to you as quick as we can. Be there in a minute, Facebook. They can't hear me, of course, because we're not broadcasting. Hang on. Facebook, be with you in a minute. YouTube, I should be talking to you guys. Hang on, because you're the ones are aware that we're off the air. All right, I think we have Facebook back online. Sorry about that. Now let me go to my quote unquote my proper grip, my drawing grip as opposed to my detail. Now this orange works quite well, and as you can see, we're already experiencing this sensation of the yellow disappears because of the darker color on top of it. And I don't mean disappears literally, I mean disappears in essence, essentially. And I don't know yet if I'm going to continue. Yeah, I think I am. All right. And the reason I'm continuing in orange is because there's still a number of issues. There's still a number of issues in the drawing that are not correct or proper yet. So I don't want to go to a darker color till I have more of these issues worked out. You see me doing one right now, which is true vertical. Something is wrong with my brain. I don't know what it is, but evidently my brain really and truly has a hard time seeing vertical. Now these lines over here are not vertical. They are in fact leaning in perspective. I had someone one time, a long time ago, criticized this aspect of a painting and said, "Oh no! If you ever see a painting that has that third perspective pointing up in the sky, then it's proof, if you will, that that painting was done from a photograph." I had never heard of such a thing, and I gave it serious consideration before I finally determined that it was pure poppycock. So just in case you've ever heard that before, like I said, I gave it a fair shot. I said, really, that is interesting. Maybe it's true. Anyway, I did some research and finally determined that no, that is no. It is, we literally do see that third perspective. And I don't know, it just sounds like something that a high school art teacher, I have great respect for high school art teachers, by the way, but it sounds like something that somebody would fly off, some half-baked theory. I don't know. I'm getting myself in trouble. I do have great respect for high school art teachers. Anyway, it is not true. Just so the point is, I'm talking about this angle right here. Someone said that denotes, that indicates, that proves that the photograph, that the painting was done from a photograph. And I am calling complete BS on that theory. I don't know where it came from. It might be widely held in the art world. I doubt it. But anyway, somebody was more than bold enough to put me in my place and rebuke me for my folly in that regard. And I am now, as you can hear, rebuking them back. Well, it comes up because I'm doing it here in this. I don't always do it. Most of the time when I'm downtown, which of course, as many of you know, most of my paintings, I think it's fair to say, are cityscapes, and therefore a lot of my paintings have tall buildings in them. And so tall buildings invite that perspective. I would say about 2/3 of the time, however, I do not include it in my city, which is kind of counterintuitive, perhaps. I mean, if there's a 30-story building, surely there would be that. But most of the time, in my opinion, it's what you hear whatever the hesitation in my voice is, it's a matter of taste or perception. How does it feel? Does it feel right? when you do that. If it does, go for it. If it doesn't, then refrain. I don't think there is any one right answer to that particular question. The question of whether you should include. But as you can see on this particular illustration, I'm deciding to, yes, go with the third point perspective. At the moment, I'm also using a ruler, which is almost unheard of. All right, I am glad that I have that I stuck with the lighter, and the question was not so much that it's darker than the yellow. I know it's darker than the yellow, but it's still quite light, and it's in the same color family as the yellow. That's the real deciding factor, because in a minute, as you will see, I'm going to depart from that safe course of action, and I'm going to start drawing using a contrasty color. So not a red or not a red color or orange or yellow color. I'm going to fly around the color wheel. I don't know how far, which direction. Now, okay, so having said that, by the way, I've already worked the point of that, so I'm going to sharpen my pencil here real quickly. Let me tell you a couple of reasons why I do this crazy method of starting a pen and ink and watercolor sketch, and I'm pretty careful to use the word sketch so as to draw a distinction between what I'm doing here and official, quote unquote. You didn't see my air quotes, did you? I was doing air quotes with my fingers. I want to draw a distinction between this and an official watercolor painting. I call it watercolor sketch. This is something that I invented, developed, made up, whichever word you want to use. And I don't even remember when I do it, when I did that, although I do know that I made a video for Jerry's Artorama about 10 years ago where I described this process. So I've been doing it. Whoops. Uh-oh, I have a problem. Well, that's why we do progressively darker colors, isn't it? This is all erroneous. There's supposed to be a gap in here because there has to be room for a sign. And even at that, I'm cheating it a little bit. I'm going to have to think about this. Hang on. Okay, it's getting more serious. I'm going to raise up the whole horizon, if you will, the sidewalk here. Yeah, and then this window comes down to here. There we go. Now we're getting closer to the proper ratios. Now you can really see the benefit, the wisdom of using the light color at the beginning and then getting progressively darker, because I just made a big change, a big shift. And because I'm still using a fairly light color, that means I can hopefully get away with this drastic of a change without getting in too much trouble. Okay, bear with me just a minute. This line actually needs to come in here. And then I'm going to bring this one. All right. I just realized, folks, I'm in a little funny predicament. I did not run something by, I'll tell you what it is in a second here. I didn't run something by my client. Let me show you the photograph that I'm working from, the photograph that my client sent to me. And she specified in her email, oops, we have lost Facebook again. We still have sound. Yeah, we still have sound. Facebook, I'll be with you in just a minute. All right, now I think we're streaming again. Sorry about that. All right, so my client, who's not an artist, just the wife of the man who owns this company, she said, I want a rendering of this building. And she said in the email, without the car, of course. Now, I'm not sure she said of course, but that was the spirit of her sentence. She said, I want this building, oh, without the car, of course. And unfortunately, now that I'm actually drawing the drawing, I realize that, oh, no, that's a mistake. And unfortunately, I didn't correct her. Ahead of time say, oh, by the way, the composition is actually better with the car there. So, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, I don't want to do the car and her think, well, that man doesn't know how to follow instructions. I told him clearly. When in fact, the composition is better. See, with a little blocker right here, this line goes all the way across the sidewalk line would go all the way across the entire painting, which is not a good thing. Toward that end, it might even be a good idea for me to put a person, but there again, it would have been better if I had asked my client about that. Person and a dog would be a nice combination. Again, for the same reason that this sweeping line goes all the way. That is generally, just for what it's worth, generally, that is not a good composition to have any line. And some of you are saying, what? Okay, yeah, sure. Here, let me do a quick. Here's a seascape. By the way, here's the seascape. Here's what's wrong with seascapes. There's the sky, there's the ocean, and there's the beach. Sure, we can put a cloud in there to help you see that that's the sky. We could put some waves in here to help you see that that's the ocean. And we could put some shells and rocks on here to help you see that that's the beach. Oh, and some grass. Okay? You can take this basic composition and multiply it by times about 10,000 student paintings. And what's wrong with them? Here's what's wrong with it. This line goes all the way unhindered from one side of the canvas to the other. Some of you are saying, and that's bad? Yes, that's bad. It's an ugly face. And there's another one. And so that's a doubly, it's a horrible composition. So just for what it's worth, yeah, generally speaking, no, horrible composition. That you might say, well, what is a good composition? Well, in the same category, I'm going to now forget the seascape. Let me show you what's a good composition. There. That's a good composition. This happy face. This frowny face. All right, so that's enough. This is frowny face. If I could put a bush, but this is a parking lot, so it doesn't make any sense for a bush to be in front of it. I'm hoping that I can convey to my client. I won't put the same kind of car because she, in fact, might think that I just am putting a car there because it was in the photograph, which is, of course, as you can hear, which is not at all the case. Okay, bear with me just a minute. Now that I yanked my reference photo down, I have to stand back up and tape it back up here. So. All right, let's back to drawing now. What colors? I put all my pencils down somewhere. I know where I put the dark ones. Good grief, I honestly don't know where I put them. All right, be that as it probably doesn't matter, does it? No, one of these is next. Probably not the darkest ones. Probably the one that I was doing the oceanscape with. All right, let me tell you my thinking and my mindset, what I'm thinking and why. I'm going to draw this again with a one-step darker pencil. In fact, and the two colors that I'm going to use, the two candidates are basically a sky blue and a mid-tone lavender purple, violet. All right? And let me tell you why that's important. So far on the paper, I have yellow and orange very next to each other on the color wheel, right? Now I'm proposing purple blue all the way around to the other side of the color wheel. A little bit close to this would be green because it's right next to the yellow, or red because it's right next to the orange if we have a real simple color wheel. But these are all the way the opposite side. Now, why does that matter? That's part of the charm, in my opinion, the charm, the beauty, the fun of this crazy technique, which you're more than welcome to play around with if you have a hankering to do so. Because as soon as I hit this watercolor paper with water, all of these pencils are going to enliven. They're all going to come alive and start flowing and running and mixing together. And in my opinion, that's when I get some of the most fascinating and beautiful accidental effects that will happen on this. Hang on, I lost my Facebook monitor. I think Facebook people are still watching, but I lost the monitor. Let's try again. There we go. Yeah, there we go. All right, now I can see your chats if anybody says anything. You know what? I'm in the mood to do purple. So this is now the third rendering of this scene. I'm going to pull it in close to me now, the photograph. And remember, I'm not just here to repeat, regurgitate, so to speak, lines that I've already drawn. I'm here to make corrections. There's one right there. There's a correction. I'll make another one here in just a second. So essentially, every time that I draw the subject, I want it to be more accurate. Now this would be just a colossal mess, because this is now my third drawing. And it would be just a mess, except for this really tricky little principle, because the purple is considerably darker than the orange. The orange will, in effect, disappear before our very eyes. Let's just keep watching here for a minute. Now, and you understand, don't you? I don't mean that literally. There's no chemical thing that's happening that will cause the purple to disappear. No. What I mean is our eyes won't notice the orange because our vision, our eyes, our attention will be arrested by the much darker purple. And I might, by the way, I might use some purple and some blue in this illustration. And I'm looking for a ruler. No, here we go. This will do, I think, yeah. Okay, so if you're following my logic thus far, now let me project and tell you a little bit where we're going from here, because this is far from the last rendering or drawing, line drawing of this subject matter, of this building. Do you know what's coming next? Can you picture it? What's the name of this, what I started this broadcast? It's called Pen and Ink. So I've got pen and ink yet to come. Black, black, black lines. And how many of you know that black is darker than purple? Than this, whatever color this is, this lavender purple color that I'm drawing with right now, right? And not only that, but what I'm drawing with right now is a watercolor pencil. So again, as soon as water hits this, these pencils are going to begin swimming around and disappearing to varying degrees, right? Depending on how much I rub them. If I just put water on and leave it, then no doubt some of the purple lines and maybe the orange lines will continue to be visible. But if I take a brush, a watercolor brush, and rub them to any degree at all, then they'll completely disappear. All right? So, but by the way, I very rarely rub them that long, that hard, because in fact I want much of the these lines to still be faintly seen, at least in the finished drawing. I'm saying all this stuff because I'm hoping you're catching the concept here, which I think is such a helpful little trick that you can. So this is now my third rough sketch, if you will, of this building. And you can see, I hope you can see, that the rendering is getting more and more realistic, more accurate every time I draw it. And you can clearly see here how your eyes see the purple lines. You ignore the orange lines quite handily. You know what? Here's, oh boy, here's something else I should have run by my client and I didn't think about it. This is bare dirt down here. There's a little bit of something right there, but I promise this, oh boy. You know what? Oh boy, I hope she's okay. Oh boy, I wish I'd remembered. I'm going to keep it quite conservative, quite simple, but I'm going to put some landscaping down here. I promise if I drive by this building, probably even right now, it's probably got landscape, it's got bushes in front of it. That's the way it's done around here. We don't have buildings without bushes around them. Tradition. I just switched, unbeknownst to me, I just switched, by the way, to my control grip, my detail grip. Now, she wants the name of the company in here somewhere, and this sign is way too small. So I have to try to figure out some way to get the man's. Yeah, I think I like the idea of a person here, by the way, walking the dog. I don't think my client will complain about that. She may indeed complain about some of the other stuff, like the bushes, but I hope not. I think probably not. I do feel bad that I didn't catch that and run it past her before I started the illustration. There is a tree peeking over the top. I'm glad for that. Why am I glad for that? Oh, by the way, let me explain. What I do a lot of architectural paintings, cityscapes. Most is what I paint more than anything else. And the reason I like cityscapes is because I enjoy the interplay, the interaction of straight architectural lines with organic shapes. I'm sorry, this is straight architectural, this is organic shapes. Let's get my hand motions right, all right? Organic shapes, straight. And this is a horrible picture because there's a tiny bit of a tree there and there, which I'm going to exaggerate, and there's no bushes, so I'm going to make those corrections. So, and I'm adding, in fact, to me, a car is an organic shape, by the way. So now I've added 3 organic shapes, more tree than the photograph, bushes, and a person. And I'm probably going to add the car too, but I'm not sure. Now that I've done this, maybe I can get by without the car. That might be I just have to figure out some way I can keep that line from going off. All right, back to the task at hand. All right, I've been scribbling these windows up here as if there's no accountability. I've just been scribbling, but the time has come for carefulness. The windows are slightly wider, with the exception there, the windows are wider than the gaps in between. So, except for right here. So I need to move that over, Let's just take a whack and see how close I can come. Oh, it actually came up pretty good. I'm going to tweak that slightly. Wow. No, okay, that was a lucky whack. I came out pretty accurate, I think. That's a little, technically should be wider. I'm sorry, this should be wider. Let me see. But I think I might be able to. Okay, I just moved it over. I'm going to use, because I'm running out of colors, I'm going to use a dark purple to, it's actually not purple, what is it, indigo? They call it bright blue, whatever that means. Okay, so I'm changing my assessment here. My lucky whack was not as accurate as I thought at first. So I shifted I ended up having to shift all the windows over a little bit. But we eventually, I think, got them in the right place. Now, just to be clear again, so you're understanding the helpfulness of this, the technique of drawing from light to dark. This still is not my final drawing. So I don't have quite as much pressure on me as one might think, because I still have one more color to go, and it's black ink. Does that make sense? And that's the one that has to be as perfect as is necessary for this illustration, for this painting. Of course, I want to get it accurate before then, so I'm not having to make decisions in the pen and ink stage. Oh, and I'll go ahead and tell you another benefit then of, this is a benefit of any rough sketch. In a sense, you could call what I'm doing here, all of these drawings, you could call them all rough sketches, right? And one of the benefit of all rough sketching of any kind, this is just one tricky technique for doing rough sketches, but one of the benefits of doing any kind of rough sketches is that when it comes time to do the final artwork, wait, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh yeah, I was forgetting about the windows on the side. I'm glad they're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of the advantages of having all of the problems, if you will, worked out in your underpainting stage. Just lost Facebook again. Let's start again. Okay, hang on, YouTube. We got to go back and pick up our poor lost friends.